Welcome to my second ever Q&A video where we are gonna A the heck out of these Qs today. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions through the YouTube community post that I shared and through Instagram stories. There's a lot of different questions here, but I think there's actually going to be kind of a running theme in some of the answers. So we'll start with the first question here that asks, from Hugo, what's the best equipment to have for voiceover when you record content? And I'm gonna say that I'll give two answers. The real practical answer is the equipment that you know how to use. So we could go into Roadcasters and SM7Bs and super nice microphones and stuff, which do make a huge difference, but you can also get great results with a really inexpensive USB microphone. It's more about how to use it, because just because you have a Roadcaster, just because you have an SM7B, does not mean that you're going to get incredible results right away. You have to know how to actually use that gear. There is kind of this like curve where higher quality gear makes it easier to get those results. So for example, the microphone I'm using right now is a Sennheiser MKH50 boomed out of frame. This is a $1,200 microphone, and I love it because it makes it super easy to just get great audio that I don't really have to mess with. It's not the only way to get great audio. I could use a $100 shotgun microphone, a $200 shotgun microphone, and get some really good audio as well. I just might have to work a little bit harder to get the end result. So there is kind of this thing where nicer gear does make it easier to get the results that you want, but it's not the only way to do it. And the law of diminishing returns is very real, which I've talked about before. If you have, for example, microphones, if you're just using like your built-in camera's microphone and you get basically anything else, whatever, a little wireless thing, a shotgun microphone, a USB microphone, anything, and you use that, it's gonna level things up huge. Now, if you go from a $25 USB microphone to a $100 USB microphone, you're probably gonna notice it levels up. You're probably also gonna get better build quality, so you're not gonna have to deal with things like handling noise or plosives as much. And then from there, you go to the 200, 300, you're still gonna level up in ways, but it's not gonna be as significant as those initial things. So all that to say, if you're trying to do voiceover stuff, whatever you have, knowing how to use it is gonna get the best results. But if you want some just sort of black and white concrete answers, I have a couple. One of my tried and true recommendations for a long time is this USB microphone right here, which is the Sennheiser Profile. I really love this because it sounds great and it's super simple. So there's no apps or anything, you just plug and play, you're good to go. It's about $100, maybe a little more, and it works great, and there's also like no handling noise. So this is a great one. Similarly, if you don't mind needing to kind of dive into apps a little bit more, the Rode NT USB Plus is a fantastic USB microphone that I kind of prefer the sound quality of the Plus to the Profile, but I prefer the usability of the Profile to the Plus, so I tend to reach for the Profile more often because of that. There are also some other things like this. This is the Fifine AM8, and this is a $35 to $40 XLR and USB combo mic, and it also works great. The sound quality on this is way better than it should be for the price. The downside to this is it's so susceptible to handling noise. You're gonna hear every little tap and touch. So you have a microphone, knowing how to use it is key, which means knowing how to set your levels. If that's USB, do you have to set the gain on the microphone? Do you set it inside some software? Are you using something like a Roadcaster or a mixer where you need to then figure out, how to do gain in that before setting it to your computer or recording or whatever? Once you've got that set, then learning about your mic positioning is really key, and then working on your mic technique. So you don't necessarily want to just have the mic directly in front of you where you're going to be breathing all kinds of air directly onto the capsule, positioning the mic in a way where it's not going to pick up a bunch of plosives and cause all kinds of problems with that. That's going to be, hugely important as well. And then recording in a space that does not have a whole bunch of reverb and terrible, acoustics happening. So it doesn't mean you need a fully sound treated space or anything like that, but just kind of being aware of where you're recording. If you're doing voiceover specific stuff and you're not trying to be on camera like I am right now, and you don't have anything, if you have like a closet that's full of clothes, that is a great impromptu sound booth. The next question I got a couple of times, which is, what is your current workflow from idea to upload? That is something that, it's different for everybody. For me, idea typically takes place in just the Apple Notes app, which works really well, and I can sync that, between all my devices. So that just kind of works. You could use Google Docs or something, and there's very fancy like production and task. I don't know. I just use the Notes app. It works great. And so I'll write down my idea there. Depending on the idea, how fleshed out it gets, kind of varies. Most of the time I'll have like an outline where I kind of know the main points I need to hit. If it's something real in-depth or really technical, then it kind of goes more towards a specific script. And I have a whole video actually about scripts versus outlines if you kind of want to know about that. Scripting for me is a little less common, but it can be really helpful, especially if there's just like certain processes or whatever, like numbers, specifications that I need to keep track of. Having a script is good because I don't want to make those kinds of mistakes. Outlines are better for kind of just, I just need to hit these points, and by the time I get through that, I know I'm good to go. That's usually where I kind of go. And sometimes it is very impromptu. I just know I want to make a video about a specific topic, set things up, press record, and just go and hope for the best. So that part kind of varies, the pre-production planning and everything. And then from there, I don't really have a specific like setup that I use every time. I kind of have like different camera angles that I use regularly, but last time I kind of redid this space in here. I set it up to be very modular. So I do have a camera on my desk here. This is my Canon EOS R, and if this is always set up, so if I just turn that on, I can start recording directly there. But that's usually something I do for more like podcasts and video calls and stuff. Sometimes for videos. Mostly for videos, I try to figure out like, what angle do I want? Do I want to be standing? Do I want to be sitting? Try to figure all that out along with, am I using one camera, two camera, three cameras? Am I using a PTZ camera like the Obsbot Tail 2 to show a close-up of something? So I start figuring out the production essentials that I will need, how I want to handle the audio for that video. Like right now, I'm speaking directly at the camera, so using the shotgun mic boomed out of frame is totally fine. But a lot of times, especially lately, I've been doing stuff that involves kind of like moving more, and so when I turn away from the mic, then it doesn't sound as good. So using a wireless mic that's clipped to my shirt is a lot better because no matter where I go, the sound is going to stay consistent. So I figure out all those details, then I record. That takes anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes usually for like a standard talking head type video. Then I usually do the rough cut of that. So I go in and just sort of like cut that all up, get the basic video put together. Sometimes I'll even polish up the rough cut more, where I've then started to like, crossfade the audio and punch in sometimes, punch out other times. And then I usually use markers if I need B-roll. And that's when then I'll go back and either film B-roll or do the screen recordings I need to do. I used to do like, I'll film everything and then I'll film all the B-roll. So if I'm doing a product, for example, I'd make the video about it and then I would set everything up and film all these glorious B-roll shots, which is cool. But I like sometimes would get shots that I didn't need and wouldn't have shots that I did need. And so I found it's much better to wait till the project is taking shape, mark where I need B-roll, and then I specifically know I can just take like my laptop with my timeline, set things up, and then I know I need a shot of the power button. Cool, shot of the power button. I need like a thumbnail shot. Cool, I'll do that. And that helps a lot. And then once it's edited, then I export it and I upload it and schedule it. And that's pretty much that. Oh, I gotta sneeze. I try to make the thumbnail at some point. Usually it's in the rough cut process that I'll put together a thumbnail, but sometimes it's not until I film B-roll that I have like the image I can use for the thumbnail. Sometimes, depending on what the video is, I might even be able to make the thumbnail like before I film the video, which when I'm able to do that, it's nice because it already kind of frames the thing. And now YouTube has a thing where you can do like A/B testing of titles and thumbnails. So you can do like up to 3 different thumbnails, 3 different titles, mix and match, see what works. So that can sort of be more work, but sometimes when you're editing thumbnails, it's like, you never know, like, do I like this one or this one more? And I do like that now I can just use both and then people decide which one they like more. So that kind of works. When are you coming to Sweden? Peter asks. Well, hopefully I would love for 2026 to be, it would be a sweet year to go to Sweden. 2025 ended up being just a way more expensive year. Obviously, like there's been changes on YouTube that make YouTube kind of harder than ever to sustain from a financial standpoint. And then also life is just like feels like every month there was some other like $1,500 expense. Like something like our garage door broke. We needed to do like some pest sealing in our attic, like to block out critters from getting in. And like all these little things that are just kind of like life expenses, but it's like every month it's like, oh, that's another $1,500, another $1,700. And it's like, I cannot like get ahead because it just, yeah. So anyway, that definitely put a lot of like travel and plans and stuff on the back burner. But I'm hoping 2026 would be a fun time, especially because where we live, summertime is very hot and miserable. And from what Peter has told me, summertime in Sweden is like glorious, and it'd be a nice escape in the summertime. What are, in your opinion, the deadly sins of video and audio? Stuff that should never be used in any circumstance ever. I had to actually think about this for a while because I was like, what is it? I don't have an answer. I don't think there's anything that you should never ever use. Obviously, there's like gear and techniques that are better than others. But something I'm personally really conscious of is like gear shaming people. And especially in the world of YouTube where you can log in and watch someone, you know, even right now, I'm using a Sony FX3 and a Sony GM, what is it? G Master. I couldn't remember the name of the lens. You know, a nice prime lens, a nice camera. It's super expensive with a super nice microphone. This is a very expensive setup to just record this talking head video. Someone could, you know, look at that and then look at their small mirrorless camera, their point and shoot camera, the webcam that they have to use, and then be like, oh man, like I can't do good things because I don't have what he has or what they're using. And I never want that to be the case. And especially like in the world of microphones, there's so many people who are like, oh, like I'm only using my Blue Yeti and I shouldn't be using the Blue Yeti. And it's like, that's a great microphone that can sound awesome. Most of the time when you hear something like a Blue Yeti not sound good, it's because the person's not using it right. Like the settings are wrong or it's positioned poorly. It's not because the microphone's not good. So that goes back to even low-end gear, even like not the best gear in the world. You can get a lot out of it if you just know how to use it and you also know that gear's limitations. Like, you know, for example, say all you have is a GoPro and you want to film all your videos with a GoPro. Well, you're probably not going to get shallow depth of field. So even if that's something you want, just knowing that with your current setup, it's not something you can get, so don't stress out about it. Like work with the strengths of what you have. With a GoPro, it's super small, it's super compact. You do get the super wide field of view. That means you can position it in really cool places. You can get sort of different looking angles and stuff. GoPros are not great in low light. So, you know, making sure that you are able to film in bright situations or outdoors as much as possible. That means you're going to be working within the limitations of your gear will then end up letting you get the best quality out of that gear. In all my years and hundreds of videos on YouTube, there's one piece of gear that I've actively said sucks and I don't like, and that is this microphone right here. The newer NW800 is the worst microphone I've ever used in my life. And sometimes people will come back at that and say, no, I have an NW800 and it sounds great. And I'm happy for you. Mine does not. It sounds awful. And this is the newer NW800, the least expensive microphone in this lineup with a price of $22-ish. This microphone is just, and microphones kind of like this, you know, they're $20. They look fancy, like it's shiny, it's gold, it looks very fancy. If I buy 5 of these, I'm going to kind of get 5 different experiences with this microphone. A couple of them might work wonderfully. A couple of them might sound terrible, like mine, which sounds like a drive-through order box. And a couple might then work and then stop working. Like there's no consistency, there's no reliability. So you might get a good one. I can't recommend this to anyone because I have no idea. I have no idea, even though it's possible for you to get a good one. If you are going to get a good one, the sound quality, you have to like work so hard to get it to sound good. Like just spend a little bit more and get that Fifine microphone that's going to sound way more than Fifine. Whereas the newer sounds like pooer. And I actually like newer stuff, like especially their like mounts and, you know, like arms and supports and stuff. I think they do a great job. I'm running this camera rig off a newer V-mount battery that I recently got that I really like. That was only like $65 or something and works great. So it's not like I'm anti this company. The NW800, maybe newer microphones in general, just stay away from them. There's no reason to do this to yourself. Like, there's just so many better options out there. So kind of continuing on in that thread of voiceover stuff and talking about closets and things, if you don't want to record in a closet, what are the best and cheapest ways to soundproof a room that you recommend? This is, again, not my area of expertise, but I do want to differentiate soundproofing versus sound treatment. A lot of times when people talk about soundproofing, what they really mean is sound treating a room. Soundproofing a room would essentially mean sound cannot either enter or escape the room. It becomes like an anechoic chamber where it, most of us don't actually need to soundproof rooms. Let's put it that way. Sound treating a room means that you are setting a space up in a way that's going to be better suited for recording audio. And that's what most of us need to do, which means you don't need to go buy a bunch of foam pads and just plaster them everywhere. Maybe a couple of them strategically placed will help. In here, I've talked about this before, and I haven't really changed my sound treatment setup in ages. This is a carpeted room, so that helps. Like working in a carpeted space, that absorbs tons of sound waves. If you don't have a carpeted space, laying down some rugs or something can make a huge difference. I have 2 acoustic panels. One is it's actually on a moving closet door that's in front of me, and the other is on the ceiling above me. And those are 2 feet by 4 feet. I got those from a website called acoustimac.com. And I like that because you can get different colors and you can get custom sizes. And for the quality of them, they're pretty affordable. Like if you price out the materials to build your own panels like that, it ends up not being that much cheaper than to just have them do it for you, which is what I chose to do. So that's all. I just have 2 of those. The one in front of me is because there's a hard surface directly in front of me, and so sound waves bounce off of that, and I like the sound panel to absorb those or break those up. And then the one on the ceiling, it still helps, but I used to always have a desk right here, and what was happening was sound was kind of going like off the desk, off the wall, up into the ceiling, and it was sort of like things were bouncing in that way. So by deadening just that spot and that spot, it fixed up almost the whole room. Just 2 panels, which you don't even see on camera, fix up the whole room. And so everybody's space is going to be a little bit different, but I think for most of us, you can probably position just a few things strategically, and that's going to make a world of difference. I do have a window right here, which I did put a sound blanket in front of because I never open the window. It's behind the colored like backdrops over here. And that actually did help quite a bit. Not as much as I would have expected, but it's nice for just sort of kind of blocking out outside noise. It's not like a miracle by any means. And then stuff really helps. Like there's no soundproofing. It could be kind of cool if I were like really smart, put like little sound pads behind each of these frames on the wall, and maybe that would help. But just having stuff on the wall breaks up, if you've ever moved out of a space and you have all your stuff out of there and suddenly you hear all the echoes and you're like, wow, it sounds so different. Just having stuff in a room works. Like hard surfaces will reflect sound, but they also can break up sound. It's very hard for sound waves to hit all these crazy angles and then not be broken up and messed up. So having stuff in your space, carpet works well, and a few strategically placed pieces of sound treatment, whether that's a blanket or a panel or foam squares or whatever, that can really help. And I think for most of us, that's probably the most practical thing to do. All right, here's one. How do you automate repetitive post-production tasks? And my answer is, I don't know how. I don't know how. The closest thing I come to automating is I made a few presets in Final Cut Pro. So especially because I use pretty much the same cameras every time, a lot of times in the same environment, I can take that footage, throw it in there, throw on the preset, and it pretty much looks exactly how I want it. I don't shoot in log or anything, so it's not like a LUT. It's just a preset that adds some like exposure adjustments, some saturation adjustments, white balance. And then I usually like it. Sometimes I need to adjust a little bit from there. But I really do love making presets in Final Cut. Sometimes I'll make project-specific ones as I'm working on something, and I find out that like I'm constantly cropping into this angle or adjusting this specific camera in this way, especially as I'm bringing in different cameras like the OBSBot Tail 2 or like a webcam or something that I'm trying to mix in, creating a preset for that matches the other footage as best I can, just speeds things up. That's probably it. I don't really have any other automated stuff. So for me, when I get to the point where I'm like, oh my God, this is repetitive and is driving me crazy, that's usually when I just then try to take a break. I try to make sure that when I'm editing stuff and doing all post-production that I'm actually enjoying it. And if it gets to a point where I'm not enjoying it, then I step away, because I feel like if I'm enjoying it, not only is the video going to be better and I'm going to have a better time making it, but I feel like that translates. Like, I don't know, if I had fun making something, somehow the person who watches it picks up on that and it's a better video, versus if I like tortured myself to make it and then you're watching something that I had a miserable time making. I don't know. I feel like there's like, I don't know if it's vibes or what that like stick to it, but I try to That's what I try to do. Take breaks and then come back when I feel better if things are feeling a little too repetitive. This is a question that's been popping up more and more lately, especially as like webcams have gotten better and better. And it is, what is the cheapest camera where you will get depth of field? And I'm guessing a shallow depth of field. I've been watching all of your webcam reviews. If you were to set up a budget multi-camera YouTube channel video podcast, what is the best bang for your Tom Buck? Are we talking 3 OBSBot Meet 2s? I know there's no depth of field, but they are relatively cheap. Or is there something else that's cheap and does a better job? Do we look at older cameras that were once expensive but aren't anymore? Best multi-camera. So there's sort of 2 questions here. But they kind of tie in. So depth of field, I'm guessing shallow depth of field. Right now I'm in focus, but you see things are blurred out back here. And specifically, like I love the way the PC and all the buttons look. So I wanted those in the background because I like the Rodecaster, little bokeh on it looks great. That shallow depth of field is something you're not going to be able to get on, usually a tiny webcam. The YOLOCAM S3 can get closer if you position things really close to it, which is super impressive. But in general, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, like using the GoPro, if that were your only camera, you had to work within its limitations. In general, if you're using webcams and stuff, rather than try to force them to do things you don't want to do, you kind of got to work within their limitations. There are software options, of course, like phones and stuff have like cinematic and portrait modes, and software can blur things out, but a lot of times it does not look super natural, or it looks so weird. It does look supernatural, but it almost becomes distracting. So if you want actual factual depth of field, that comes down to wide aperture and camera sensor size. So you might see like this YOLOCAM, this S3, has an aperture of, what does it say? f1.85, which is pretty darn wide. Like an f1.8 is great. But the sensor on this camera is so small. It's probably like a fraction of the size of my pinky nail. Same with like your phone camera. It's so small that even though you have a wide aperture, the lens is small, the sensor's small. So you need that, the bigger the sensor, the easier it is to get a shallow depth of field. It doesn't mean you need a full frame camera like I'm using now. You could go and look at like an older Micro Four Thirds camera, for example, which is still going to have a way bigger sensor than a webcam or a phone will. You could go into a crop sensor camera. So, like the Sony ZV-E10, ZV-E10 Mark II are always like my recommended starting points because they're just such solid cameras. Even the original ZV-E10, if you're on a budget, more of a budget, I think that's the way to go. And then you can pair it with, you can put any E-mount lens on it from Sony or another brand. And that's awesome. As soon as you get into that, like the world where you can put a different lens on a camera, then you're probably gonna be able to get shallow depth of field. If you're doing a multicam setup, obviously that's gonna be more expensive. Doing 3 $100 webcams, 3 $200 webcams, that's gonna be way cheaper. You get 3 YOLOCAM S3s for hundreds of dollars less than one Sony ZV-E10. So for a multicam setup, it sort of depends on what you need. Webcams are great. Just know that whatever you're running them into, whether it's a computer or an external thing like a YOLO box, be sure that you can actually run multiple webcams into it. There is a page on my website, I'll just put this here, for recommended gear setups. If you want to know like setups that I recommend for specific things, that's kind of the way to go. But the reason I bring all that up right now is you can mix and match. So say you had like 2 mirrorless cameras that had prime lenses on them. You could use one of those for your guests. So each person on the show has one of those cameras fixed on them. And then your main camera, not your main camera, but your master shot that has like both people in it in the full setup, maybe you don't really need a shallow depth of field for that because you're trying to show multiple people, you're trying to show the whole space. So maybe that's when you could throw in like a webcam or a less expensive camera that doesn't have shallow depth of field, because you're probably also not going to use that shot a ton anyway in a podcast setup. You kind of start there, you cut back to it from time to time, but for the most part, you're kind of seeing the individuals talking a lot of the time, typically. So you might be able to mix and match. Not every shot needs like razor thin depth of field. Hi, Tom. I want to start a virtual podcast with guests, but to be honest, I'm camera shy and lack camera confidence. Many say you need to have more energy than usual, and others say just be yourself. Which one is it? What do you advise? That is such a good question. And I can only speak from my own experience, which is I started this channel not wanting to be on camera. The whole point was to make videos about other people. But the reason that didn't work was because then I have to like schedule around other people. And it was like, I could make 4 videos a year versus if I was just the one in front of the camera, I can make way more videos. because I'm the bottleneck then. So the reason I'm on camera is out of necessity. I did not want to be on camera, was super not comfortable, and you can go back. There's a reason I leave up old videos that are not related to anything on the channel, because it's fun to see that journey. I mean, it's fun memories for me, but also like, it's a skill that you build up. Learning how to speak publicly, present, how to be on camera, all those are skills that, like, I am someone, when I did public speaking in college, I took a public speaking class, I would have like anxiety attacks. I literally had to wear like sweat pads under my arms because I would like drip sweat so much. I couldn't sleep the night before I had to give a speech, you know, and then after years and years of teaching and then years and years of doing YouTube, I don't have any fear of public speaking now, which to me just shows that you can't actually learn that, because I was like the most scared of public speaking before. And so if I can do it, really anybody can do it. But your persona on camera, like, I'm fortunate that I feel like everyone I've met from YouTube, for the most part, has been exactly what they seem like. So YouTube is a great place to be yourself, like you to be yourself. There's something clever there. I don't know what it is exactly. But you don't, like, some people are more high energy and that's just what comes across naturally. Other people are more low energy, or that's not even the right term. Like, they're more laid back and that's what comes across. And I think, you know, viewers want different things. Sometimes you want to watch someone who's very laid back and chill. Sometimes you want to watch someone who's very energetic and enthusiastic. What I would say is don't fake it. Like, if you're a laid back, chilled person, you don't need to act like Mr. Beast on camera. In fact, just please don't, in general, don't act like Mr. Beast on camera. The thing I will say that maybe is something to keep in mind, and I used to tell my students this when I taught broadcasting, is that there's the old saying, like, the camera adds 10 pounds. I don't find that to be true, but the camera definitely does take away about 10 to 20% of your energy. So you feel like you're being super energetic, and then you watch it back and it's like, hi, this is my video about the thing. They also all take the same batteries. So I'm able to use my Hero 5 batteries on the Hero 7, which is great. I don't need to have another separate set of batteries. I don't know why, but for some reason, maybe it's just the nerves of being on camera, especially if you're not used to it. So sometimes to start, you might have to, you know, speak a little bit louder, be a little more energetic than you think you would normally be, and actually on camera that will look normal. And then I think over time, as you kind of build the comfort and the muscle memory and everything, the skill set, it sort of just becomes easier to be natural on camera the same way that you would be in real life. But there's nothing wrong with being camera shy. There's nothing wrong with being chill on camera. It is a skill that you can learn, but there's also nothing wrong with it being something that isn't for you. I think if someone really wants to do it, pretty much anybody can figure it out, but you shouldn't feel like you should have to do it. Like, oh, I should be on camera, I have to do this. And maybe you can work around it. Maybe you don't need a video podcast. Maybe you need an audio podcast and you're gonna be way more comfortable not having to be on camera. Maybe it is something that you wanna push through and kind of get out of your comfort zone. Just know that there's no one answer for everyone. There's no right or wrong, and you shouldn't feel like you always have to be in pain and uncomfortable when you're making stuff. It should be enjoyable, because then you'll want to make more stuff because it's fun. And our last question from Gil: besides a decent mic arm, what's one thing you would like to see be made to help make creating fun and easy? For years now, I've ranted about, like, if I could design a product, it would be the perfect mic arm. Aside from that, what is something? And the thing that pops immediately to my mind, I don't know that I have like a specific thing, but this year I've been getting really into, you know, like exploring the world of webcams, of like YOLO box based setups, of PTZ cameras. Anything that helps those things work together better is, I think, going to be really helpful for a lot of people, because they just open up so many different workflows. And the thing that I think pops up the most, which is like really more simple, it's not really like a super innovative thing, but being able to have full control over camera color in whatever you're using. Like Ecamm Live is probably my favorite example of this, because it's so easy. Every camera source, you have like kind of full camera controls, and you can really dial things in and make them match super easily. OBS, you can do this as well. It's just not as smooth as Ecamm. But then other things, like, for example, in my YOLO box, when I mix cameras, I have my Sony cameras and I have like an OBS bot or something, it's really hard in that to make them match. And even then I can sort of adjust things in the YOLO box, or not the YOLO box, the OBS bot software, but the YOLO box doesn't have options. Like, things that would let me easily just match cameras in multicam recording software, multicam recording devices. I mean, that changes everything. Like not having to spend any time on the color, like dialing it all in as I start recording, and then all I essentially have to do is cut that up, cut out the mistakes and things when I'm done recording. Like that would streamline the workflow so much, and that feels like something that could probably be added in like a firmware update or something. So maybe not the most exciting answer in the world, but definitely something that popped into my head. And then the other thing is maybe simple things. I'm looking around, I'm seeing a lot of HDMI cables kind of hanging out of cameras precariously. Maybe some easy way of making cables stay in things would be nice. Some sort of clip, I don't know. But there we go. Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions for this Q&A. I had a lot of fun thinking about this stuff. I love doing Q&A live streams because they have such a back and forth like dialogue in real time, but it's also really fun to do videos like this because I can think about things and edit them a little more in depth. So hope you enjoy this. Thanks again for all the questions, and I'll see you next time.